Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dukes of Gaming. It's good to be here. I'm your host, Thomas, the Duke of Anime. And joining me is my fellow Duke, the Duke of Design. How are you doing this week, Ben?
Hello. It has been a week. Not a great week, not a terrible week, just a week.
In the
And
middle.
here we are at the end of it. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I cannot complain. Been a long week for me too. But as always, I'm excited to talk about some video games, the one
Always.
stress reliever in my life.
Yeah.
So let's start off with what we've been playing, of course. I guess I'll start since it's just something real quick. I have been out of the house all week long. So I've only been able to play my Switch. And I've only been playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. Shouts out Taylor. He talked about that game earlier this year. So I won't go too deep into it. All I'll say is it's a great game with a lot of caveats. It's not something I would say everybody should rush and play. I think it's something that if you have nostalgia for Pokemon and you want to see how far this franchise has come, highly recommend it. But if you're somebody who plays a lot of JRPGs, this is not doing a whole lot to kind of, it combines a whole lot of things I've seen. I see a lot of Ni no Kuni in there. I see a little bit of Dragon Quest in there. But I do feel that the games I just named do a lot of those systems better. But besides that, I really do think this game is something that is a triumph of the franchise. And most people probably say it's the best Pokemon game.
Yeah, it strikes me too as a game that would be pretty good as a kind of time waster, chill kind of game. Something you could do while you're like watching a show in the background
Yeah.
or in the room with other people or listening to a podcast or something like that where your attention's divided and that's not like a huge detriment to the game, which is that's a good thing.
You hit the
I
nail on the head.
love having those
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I played it for. I probably played it 99% of the time with no sound because the Pokemon don't say their name. They just do that. You know what I'm saying? They do the
And
little
there's not really much voice acting, right?
There's no voice acting.
Yeah, well, there you go.
There's no voice acting. So it's all you're hearing is the music, and I would say it's very like Breath of the Wild esque. Like you can tell, like Breath of the Wild was the template.
Yeah, definitely.
And so there's a lot of silence to be had in this game. So yeah, as a podcast game, it's great. I like. I'll put it in perspective. I've only died. A matter of fact, I haven't died at all. There was a time where I all my Pokemon died, but my character was still alive, so I hightailed it out of there. But I've yet to die in this game, so I don't know what dying feels like. And it doesn't look like I'm ever gonna die. It just seems like it's a game where you're just gonna like go through and
I will
just
never die.
I will never die. In Pokemon, I am immortal.
Yeah,
But and I can't say that about all the other like in every other Pokemon game, like I've died a couple times,
sure.
So this game is aggressive. Like how Elden Ring is aggressively hard, this game's aggressively easy.
Aggressively casual.
It's like proud of being easy, which
Yeah.
honestly, a lot of games like while I don't think they're, try to go out and be as challenging as possible, like this game goes out of its way to be easy, which I have to respect. I think that kids are gonna. I feel like this is already one of the highest selling Pokemon games,
Yeah.
and it's easy to see why because I can see kids loving this thing.
Right.
And the other game, speaking of kids, the other game I was playing the demo to Kirby. Um,
Interesting.
I have to say, this game is really good. Like
Nice, nice.
I might have to get this at some point. I can't say it's, the best Kirby game because to
Mhm.
me, that will always be Kirby Air Ride on GameCube.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite games growing up. But besides that, like as a traditional Kirby adventure, like this is pretty outstanding because Kirby, this is the first time Kirby's had a 3D platformer game.
Hmm.
They've
Yeah, they've
never,
always been 2D, right?
yeah, even when because when the Nintendo 64 was coming out,
Yeah.
all the franchise pretty much got it. I know Donkey Kong did, Mario did, Zelda did. They all went into that 3D form.
Right.
And Kirby stayed 2D
Yeah,
or
I remember that
2.5.
game very well. I played a lot of Kirby 64, and that
And
was like a 2.5D. I mean, it was on a 2D plane, but
right.
everything was 3D rendered.
Right. So this is the first, and even in GameCube, they skipped GameCube. They did Kirby's Air Ride, which
Yeah.
was I love. That was one of my that was my go-to like when we're having a sleepover, we're returning on Kirby's Air Ride. So I love that game. I can't say it's like a great game. It was just a fun game. No, nothing on Wii, nothing on Wii U. So this is the first time Kirby has been able to stretch his legs out or whatever he has. And man, this game feels like a spiritual successor to Super Mario Odyssey,
Hmm.
which I was not expecting. And look, I think that the Super Mario Odyssey, I never realized the cap thing was kind of like a take on what Kirby does.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I
true.
didn't think about it
Mario's
like,
always had like a little bit of that, right? Like with the Tanuki suit or whatever.
yeah, but with Odyssey, what was different was the hat made you turn into his enemies. That was
Right.
something that was new.
Right.
I didn't think about the fact that, oh, he's stealing Kirby's move. That's what Kirby
Sorta. Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Kirby just sucks
It's
them
an
in.
inverse Kirby.
Yeah, and this game has that, of course, which makes it seem a little like Super Mario Odyssey. The other thing it does is I don't know if you've seen the demo, but like when he like when he's sucking up something that's too big for him, he'll like half-ass it, where he's like over top, like he tries to inhale a car
I
and he's
did
just
see the
over.
car, yeah,
Yeah.
in the
And
trailer.
there's a lot of stuff like that. And it's every time it's just hilarious. And this game is
Yeah,
hilarious too.
good old
So
Carby.
Yep, Carby.
Yeah.
It's he has so many different forms, and the level design's really good. It looks vibrant as hell. I think this is going to be on some people's game of the year talks.
Interesting.
I think it has that
Alright, so
potential.
are you gonna get it when it comes out? Or has it already come out?
It's already come out. I have told myself I have to beat a game before I buy a game.
Mm,
Right?
yeah,
My backlog is it's not even a
too big.
money thing. It's just my backlog. I looked at my backlog. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is too bad. This is too much.
definitely, definitely.
So once I beat Arceus, I plan on getting either Elden Ring or Kirby, which are
Yeah.
two completely opposite games. Like,
Yeah.
as opposite as they come, probably. Because I was playing
Yeah.
on the hard mode in Kirby, and I was like, this is toddler stuff. And this is a hard mode. So I know it's gonna just be like Arceus, where it's like I'm not gonna be dying, I'm just gonna be getting through.
Yeah,
But we'll see. I plan on getting it though at some point. Probably get it for a friend too. I know my friend, she loves Kirby, so we might just be playing it together.
that's cool. Yeah, I feel the backlog woes. That was a big factor in deciding not to go for any platinums this year. I'm just like, man, I just need to actually
Get
finish
through it.
more games rather than spending more time on a few games.
Yeah, no, it's better. And honestly, I feel like there is a thing of adding to your backlog, and there is a proud feeling of, oh, I have so many games to play, but it's also a matter of a sadness, where it's like, dang, all these
Yep.
games I never touched and I own, and
And
there's
they just
nothing I
like
can.
hang over your head too.
Right.
They like spoil your enjoyment of other things because it's like this
Exactly.
obligation that you saddle yourself with
It's exactly.
needlessly.
So I don't want to add to that.
Yep.
And I but I'm gonna play it though. I had a good enough time with it that I want to experience this whole entire package. But the demo is pretty
Cool.
sizable. I highly recommend if anybody's curious. It's free, of course. So yeah, that's pretty
Excellent.
much my week, a real Nintendo focused week. What have you been playing this week?
I've been playing lots of Elden Ring still, and I am oh god, I'm ready for this game to be done.
You at that
I
point?
yeah, I am 95 hours in, and I was ready for this game to be done probably
Ooh,
10 to 15 hours ago.
Jesus.
I am stuck, super, super stuck on a late game boss, an optional boss, so I am doing it to myself, but I do wanna beat her. She is a pretty important character even though she's optional, and she is just stomping my face, and it's not so bad because by all accounts, this is the hardest boss in the game by far, and it may be one of the hardest bosses in the entire Soul series. Um,
Mm,
so it's not like I'm having a particular problem with her, but at the same time, it makes it worse because I try to look up like tips for beating her online, and it's just like
good luck.
it's just yeah, just good luck. Yeah, pretty much. There's no way to cheese her really. Um, so I'm just stuck, and I've been trying to like grind away at her for hours, trying to like get a few more levels to get a small edge and damage, that kind of thing. But it takes a long time to get a new level now because I need like 150,000 runes for every level because I'm like level 140 at this point. So
is there
I'm
is there a max level?
I don't think there is a max level, but you get to a point of diminishing returns when you're investing points into certain stats. Like they hit certain caps where if I put a point into my intelligence stat that would have increased my magic damage by 20 points for levels like 1 through 40, and then you hit 40 and then it increases it by 10 points, and then you hit 60 and it increases it by 5 points. So it's like it's diminishing returns the higher level you get on any given stat.
Right.
um but I don't think there's a level cap, but it's like it's harder and harder, and it takes longer and longer to gain a single level. um because I'm already really beefy. I mean, like I should, by all accounts, I should be able to beat her right now at the level that I'm currently at, but I'm not good enough or patient enough.
So
Either one.
it's not a level cap type thing in terms of how good you have to be to fight her. It's a skill thing.
I mean, I think there is a minimum level that you would want to be at before you even attempt her, but I'm well over
Yeah, so I mean,
the level. Yeah,
you're already past the
yeah, yeah,
place of like this is just a matter of you have to find the right strategy.
yeah, yeah, and get lucky. I think that's
That's yeah,
because
that's
I've
fair.
gotten pretty close to beating her a couple times and just gotten unlucky with a
See, those are the
particular
most
move.
irritating. Those are
Yeah.
like when you're right there, like when you reduce the boss level like all the way down,
Yeah.
like it's like right there, like two hits away,
Yep.
and then those are the worst feelings. So I'm
Infuriating, absolutely infuriating. But that is not the only game I've been playing. Uh, I really hope I'm done with it by next week, though. I'm pretty done playing Elden Ring. It's a great game, but it's wearing out its welcome for me for sure. Um, I've also been playing Final Fantasy VII, the original. I Yeah,
oh,
I started this game last year or the year before. God, you know, it's been a long time. 2020 and 2021 were long years. Um,
like 3 years all wrapped in one.
yeah, seriously. Uh, so I started Final Fantasy VII a little while ago. I got 10 to 12 hours into it. really enjoyed it. I was having a good time, but I just kind of fell off for whatever reason. Um, I decided to pick it back up on a whim, and I've just been kind of plugging away at it. I'm not trying to really play it in depth. I'm really just trying to get a story experience of the game. So I'm kind of rushing through most battles and using the PS4 kind of cheats where you can get invincibility and unlimited limit breaks, that kind of thing,
Mhm.
to speed through most of the game. Um, I wasn't playing that way for the first few hours, and then I was like, "All right, I get it. I don't really want to play this as a game system. I want to experience it as a story." Um, so yeah, I've been focused on that and really enjoying it. As archaic as it is, as PS1 as the game is, there's a lot of like interesting ideas in this game, and it's amazing how interesting they still are, even though they are portrayed in such a um, light way. Um, there, it's still there's just seeds of really cool stuff. So it makes me really anticipate playing the remake, to see kind of how they modernize that. But also, I'm really excited for the future installments of the remake as well.
Yeah, I can't. Look, I that was my favorite game of 2020. I love that
Yeah.
game should not exist. That game is like a thing from my dreams. So, yeah, I love the remake and yeah, the original game is one of those games where like it's a classic for sure, but it's not the funnest game to go back to. Like
Yeah.
obviously there are plenty of RPGs that have come out since then, but I do think that it is one of those timeless things. I feel like every gamer should at least. I don't think everybody has to beat it per se, but I think people should at least play the Midgar section. It's not long; it only take a couple hours, but I think that like because even from when that game was released, that was to me the first time Final Fantasy embraced like an anime kind of
Hmm.
storytelling. Because the ones before that, my favorite Final Fantasy 6, the before like Final Fantasy 6 and beyond, like Final Fantasy 6 more like steampunk,
Hmm.
and then before that is really like high fantasy. And so that was the first one. I can't even. It's hard to even describe what genre that is because it's. I would say it's
Yeah.
cyberpunk, but it's really
Yeah.
like
Midgar. Yeah. You could
yeah,
you could call it
yeah.
that.
Like it's cyberpunk a little bit, but it's really like ecological. Like it has like it's very. It's a very interesting. I feel like it's
Yeah.
to this day the most interesting setting they've ever done in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it is very compelling. There's, future dystopia mixed in there. It reminds me a little bit of Avatar: The Last Airbender as well. There's this whole
Mm,
spiritual element to it, and yeah, cool stuff, really cool stuff.
really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. Anything else you've been playing?
No, not this week.
Well, speaking of spiritual things, people are spiritually pissed about Gran
Spiritually.
Turismo 8. Or Gran, I'm saying 8, Gran Turismo 7.
Yeah.
People are pissed. And while I do think it's a matter of, there's a lot of other things going on in the world. So it's hard to get mad about all this, but I get where people are coming from. So just kind of give some background on what's going on with Gran Turismo 7. It was released about 2 weeks ago, and it was released to pretty good acclaim, 87% on Metacritic. But reviewers did not get a chance to review the microtransaction setup. And that has caused a lot of controversy because now cars that would cost, I don't know the game economy, but cars that would cost a small amount of money, in game money, now cost a lot of in game money. And now people are being forced to pay for them with cash if they want to unlock them in a reasonable amount of time. In addition, they put the single player as an always online type of single player. And due to this, whenever there's like a server outage, you can't play the game at all. And so there was a big server outage and it was out for an entire day. So obviously Twitter, obviously all the social medias were buzzing about this.
Yep.
and it's caused them to release on the PlayStation blog. They released an update about the situation. They've given players $1 million in credit. They have promised a whole bunch of improvements to the microtransaction system. But my question to you, Ben, especially since you are in the video games industry, is this a case of them not asking for them asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission to do this? Like, are they just asking for permission? Are they just like, you know what I'm saying? Are they just, they knew this was gonna happen, and so they just, they wanted to just get all the game out and everything, get the good reviews, and now they say, oh, it's easier to apologize. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying, and I completely understand the perception of them trying to get one past the goalie. Essentially,
Hmm.
um, I get that. This, I would not assume that that is the case here. Just to give the benefit of the doubt, this sounds like classic live service woes to me, and I would you know assuming the best out of this situation, right? I
Right.
would bet money on on the idea that there was a discussion during development of like, oh no, we're screaming toward launch. We need resources in a few key areas. We've got programmers here and there, but we don't have enough for these areas. Can we redistribute from other places? Where could we slacken in order to invest in other areas? And they're like, well, nobody's gonna care if our microtransaction store doesn't ship at launch, right? So let's take the programmers that were focused on implementing their microtransaction store and focus them in on something else so we can get the product feeling good for launch, and then we'll focus on our microtransaction store. I could absolutely see that being the case where they make a cost benefit analysis and say, let's push this as a feature of the game that we're not going to focus on
I feel you.
in the immediate. And but then it has the unintended consequence of making people feel like, hey, what the hell, this wasn't in the pre-release version of the game that reviewers had. Like it's hard to imagine that they didn't understand the optical issue with that. um but I don't really buy the idea that they needed to slip one past the goalie in this case.
I
Would
don't know.
would onerous microtransactions have changed the needle on the review scores? What do you think about that?
That's a good question. Um, I would imagine that I don't think it would change the scores, but I do think I've seen some reviewers like put disclaimers in the reviews. Like they did that with this, where it said we weren't able to review the microtransactions. They put a lot of reviews put that disclaimer there. Um, I would assume that would not affect the scores too much. Because I mean, that's not I don't really I can't remember the last time where a game was ding points because of its microtransactions per se. Unless it's something like Star Wars Battlefront 2,
Yeah, that was the
where
last prominent
yeah,
one.
that's the last one where it's like, yeah, this is legit pay to win. Like
Yep.
that's not what this seems to be. This seems to be I want to unlock the cars I want to unlock like I could in the previous Gran Turismo games. And this new microtransaction system that they've implemented has made that harder. That's what it seems like to me. I don't think that's something that should affect review scores, but I do think it's a little crummy that they've made it harder to unlock cars that used to cost like $2 of of money before. So I definitely see it on both sides. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but it is interesting because I don't remember Gran Turismo ever being a franchise that has controversy around it. It seems like it's one of the goodwill franchises we have, especially for Sony.
Yeah, I'm I mean, I'm not plugged in enough to Gran Turismo to know, but
Me neither.
this does seem like the most smoke there's been around a one of these releases. Um, it does, and Matt Bliss brings this up in the comments. They're trying to tap live service as a function and tripping over a botched patch. It does seem like they're trying to address some of the issue and doing it ham-handedly and kind of exacerbating the uh the perception of a kind of greedy money wringing happening here. But I I can say with certainty that it's very difficult to understand the line between, is this a fun long-term chase for players who want to invest time in the game, and then like giving players who don't have time but have money, because that's, I mean, like I remember having these discussions with other people in the industry when Battlefront 2 came out, and I was all up in arms about Battlefront 2. At the time, I was like still in college, I had no money, so I'm coming at it from that perspective. I had time to play the game too, you know. So I'm coming at it from that perspective. I'm like, oh my god, EA is like, you have to play for 15 hours before you can unlock Luke Skywalker, or you pay, you know, X amount of money to do so. And I remember talking to somebody else, and he was like, yeah, that's great. I'm so glad I can pay money to not have to grind. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I have money, I just don't have time for that shit. So, you know, like, give me Luke Skywalker. And I was like, okay, okay,
That's
this is like a bit
interesting.
of a perspective change on that. It's like, it's not it's not as simple as um, you know, uh it's not as simple as like trying to wring money out of everybody. I
Yeah,
really think the difficult balance there design wise is like, how does this feel like a thing you need to earn to the people who don't buy it without feeling onerous, right? What's
right.
the line? What's the line there where it feels like fun to earn and it takes time.
Yeah, I feel you. I think the microtransaction discussion is a very interesting one because I feel like with some games it's in there, but it doesn't like really mean anything. For example, I play a lot of sports games. And I feel like sports games are the ones that have the most microtransactions in them in terms of like that's how their economy is generated. Like 2K, I play a lot of 2K. 2K will sell X amount of copies and sell X amount of dollars, and then three times that amount will be made in microtransactions. And people will complain all the time about microtransactions in the game. And I'm like, I just play season mode and I play against friends. I never have to pay for anything. So I never have any complaints. Like I just like 2K. But a lot of people have an issue with that, with this idea of paying for something after you play the game. And I'm like, I mean, I think it depends on what game it is, of course. And I see with Battlefront why it's a little more a bigger issue. But could you not unlock any heroes without paying money or putting that amount of time?
No, it was just, if I recall, it was just like the most iconic heroes. It was the fact that like it was the fact that it was Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader that you had to grind for. I
Like
think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Make General
Yeah,
Grievous
exactly.
super long. You know,
I
yeah, like
yeah, I
I
think
get it from there.
I agree there too. I think like, I think a better system. Typically, people, a design fallacy. I think a lot of people fall for is like, lock the best stuff behind the hardest grind, so
Mm,
that you get the most reward for the biggest input. But I don't actually think that's the way that makes everybody feel the best about the experience. I think typically you want to give the biggest bang for your buck rewards earliest to feed this desire to play, to earn things, and then the more minute particular stuff gets trickled out, the further the grind goes. I think that's typically a smarter way to handle that type of thing. That way, the people who are most invested can, you know, fine tune what they're doing. They have like 20 different heroes to pick from instead of a pool of 5 different heroes. But the least invested can have a more complete experience for them from earlier on, right? And that, like, that drives further engagement, I think, rather than preventing it.
yeah, I think another solution, because just going back to sports games, what I think what Battlefield could have done better is they should have just had a mode that was just like my team, or how I think Madden's same thing, where it's just like trading cards essentially, and you like get them, and when you get them, you unlock characters with specific attributes. I feel like they could have done something like that and nobody would have been mad, and just kept the original Battlefront gameplay the same. I think they could have done something like I think the problem was that was just the multiplayer in general, right?
Yeah, it was not just the heroes with Battlefront 2, it was, all of the progression system. Like, the
Mhm.
progression system was totally loot box driven, and I think that was probably the biggest thing. The most difficult part of that too is that the whole thing was RNG based off of loot boxes, then you could buy the loot boxes to have a better chance of getting, whatever upgraded stats that you wanted to get. So they had to pivot the whole game to a basically a level progression model so that you could deterministically unlock things, and then the loot boxes became for just cosmetic stuff. So I think that was a case where they like it was an inappropriate application of loot boxes.
Yeah, and we would say with Gran Turismo, it doesn't look like anything that egregious. It just looks like a big component of the game, which
Yeah.
was unlocking these cars, filling up your garage. Also another issue was there's a change in selling your cars as well. That
Hmm.
I don't think you can sell your cars anymore or something along
Interesting.
those lines. So it's like a lot of little changes that have made it so yeah, just go buy some more cars. Like yeah, you can grind for 15, 20 hours, or you can pay this $40 for this
Yep.
Lamborghini or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I it's a really interesting conversation because I don't know how Forza Motorsport handles that, because that would be like the direct competitor. And I don't
Right.
know how they handle that per se. I don't think it's that much better.
Yeah, I
But
think I think the always online component too is definitely frustrating when it seems kind of needless when there's modes that like should be able to function perfectly well offline, and yet your options when you're playing offline are incredibly limited in GT7 as far as I understand.
yeah, I heard I don't think it's any. I've got when the
There's like a,
servers
there's
were
like a
off.
free drive kind of mode, but pretty much everything else is locked by
Mm,
connectivity.
yeah, when the servers were off, I don't know if that free drive mode was accessible. But I know that people were saying they could not access the game when the
Yep,
servers were. And I'm like, that's a problem. Like
definitely.
that's something that should be addressed. So it seems like they're on top of it. I don't know how much you can change as far as patches go. I don't think you can turn it from a always online game to a sometimes online game with
Yeah.
patches. But hopefully they address it because I mean, look, Polyphony Digital is one of the. I mean, they're not as name brand, I guess, as a Naughty Dog or a Insomniac, but they're one of PlayStation's biggest studios.
Yeah, and one of their most important too, I think, for
Yeah,
sure.
and so I will give them like you. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think this was they weren't trying to be EA. I don't think it was anything like that. But I do think they wanted to bring a more updated monetization strategy to the Gran Turismo series. Because as far as I know, with GTA Sport and GTA 6, I played a little bit of GTA 6. Um, and the microtransactions were there, but it wasn't something I felt was necessary.
Yeah.
And now it appears to be a little more necessary. So hopefully they get it right in the future. Still has an 87%. So shouts out to Cole. I think he picked I think he picked that. So good pick. Good
Yep.
pick. Also, we need to talk about the latest announcement from Cyberpunk developer. Oh, blank on the name.
CD Project Red.
CD Projekt Red. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they released a little teaser. They released a little image of Lynx, I believe, announcing that they have officially begun pre-production, I believe, on The Witcher 4,
Yeah.
which I think is at some parts it's exciting, at some parts it's a little scary. Where do you fall? Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I think this game is very far in the future. So I'm not terribly concerned about cyberpunk rubbing off on this game necessarily, if that's what kind of what you're getting at here. Like importing the woes of cyberpunk onto this new Witcher game.
Mhm.
Uh I certainly hope the company has learned that they can take their time to get this stuff out, and that ultimately that's going to be the best strategy. They didn't learn the monetary lesson for Cyberpunk, but hopefully they learned the public perception lesson. Um, they're a good developer though. I still believe that even though Cyberpunk didn't come out fully baked. They're an ambitious developer. They're a capable developer, and they've
Mhm.
been working on proprietary tools for all of their games. I think their first game was built on one of BioWare's engines. So the original Witcher was, but then after that, I think they have been working on proprietary internal engine, and now they are moving to Unreal Engine 5, which
Mhm.
is interesting.
Exciting to
Interesting
me.
to me. Yeah. Again, this game is still many years away.
End of
I
the lifespan of the console to me. Like
Yeah,
that's where I'm sensing at
yeah.
least.
I'm thinking like 5 years. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm not, I'm sure it's going to look great and all that, but there will have been other impressive Unreal 5 games before that. What's interesting is that Unreal is a well supported, very versatile engine with lots of external documentation and like ease of access, ease of on ramping, that kind of thing. That's one of the big wins that you get with Unreal. You get, you know, the full force of Epic Games, and the tools that they make for or that they use on their games, that they make to use on their games. So that should give people a little bit of hope, I think, as far as the technical stability of the game is concerned. Um, it should be easier for them to thread the needle between technological advancement and stability, using a more known entity like Unreal. So that's interesting to me.
I'm with you on the optimism standpoint. CD Projekt Red has had a very eventful past 2 years, to say the least. Cyberpunk didn't come out to the greatest of reception, but that had less to do with the game as a in a vacuum, as opposed to the other factors of just the bugs of everything. I think the actual game that they crafted was great. And so I think that The Witcher 3 was great as well. I can expect this game to kind of continue on that. I would hope that the bugs are going to be less, is because even the Witcher 3 had a lot of bugs. So I'm hoping that moving to a more supported engine, I assume, because I believe Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, those are on proprietary engines, right? Ones that they created. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping that them moving to gonna probably be the industry standard engine by that time. Like we're gonna see a lot of games come out on Unreal Engine 5 by that point. I would hope that that helps with that. But it's a far ways away. We'll know when we see it more. I'm excited because the story for Witcher 3 was, to me, I mean, that's to me the best Witcher story in general. I've read through, I didn't play 1 and 2, but I read through the stories and then I've read the novels by the original author. And so I thought that The Wild Hunt was the best of the series in terms of the storytelling. So I'm very interesting to see where that goes in 4. I know that the pendant that was shown is of another school. So the Witcher that where Geralt and them are from, that's like the cat school. and this is going to be a different school that we're focused on. So
Yeah, I mean, they're very particular to say that this is a new saga in The Witcher,
yeah.
which makes me think that it's not a direct sequel of The Witcher 3. You know, the immediate thought coming out of Witcher 3 was that if they wanted to continue the series, they could do it with Ciri. I don't
Hmm.
think that's a good idea because even though she's a good character, she's like super powerful. She's like got like godlike powers, you know.
She's like that. She's like the Avatar, essentially.
Yeah, so it's not going to be the same Witcher type of gameplay with Ciri. Um, she's got like cosmic level concerns where Geralt has, Witcher level concerns. So if they want to keep that same kind of witchery, I've always described Witcher as like a fantasy noir. Essentially, Geralt is like a
I like that.
monster hunting detective where he's like solving the crime scene to find the monster to save the
He
day.
he is basically that world's Batman. Like that's a very,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, that's a very good comparison. Very
Um,
noir feeling. Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
That's a good way to put that.
So I would like to see them stay in that thematic realm. So it's interesting, this suggests to me that this is going to be a new era, new characters, that kind of stuff. I think Witcher 3 ends that saga
Hmm.
beautifully. So I think they should leave it where it is. It's also interesting going back to the technical side here. Um, their press release specifically says their use of their strategic partnership with Epic Games covers not only licensing but technical development of Unreal Engine 5. So it's a two-way street, really. CD Projekt Red is working with Epic Games, telling them what they need from the engine. Epic Games is working on the engine to bolster CD Projekt Red's development, as well as for future versions of Unreal Engine where relevant. It says
Mm.
will closely collaborate with Epic Games developers, with the primary goal being to help tailor the engine for open world experiences. That's interesting because Epic doesn't make open world experiences. I guess you could call Fortnite open world, but it's not really, not like The Witcher is. So
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't necessarily call Fortnite
yeah,
open
so
world, but yeah, I get you.
UE5 can be used to make open world games, but it's not a open world game engine that you would like.
Are
It's
there
not the
any
first
UE?
engine you would go to for
Are
open
there
world
any
games, I don't think.
UE4 games that are open world?
I'm sure there are. Days Gone's
Oh,
the first
right,
example that comes to mind,
right. Okay, that's a good one. I
which
didn't
was
think about that.
also very technically broken at launch. So maybe that proves the point that Unreal Engine is not exactly optimized um, for open world games. So it's interesting that Epic is going to be working with one of the premier open world game developers to kind of suit the engine toward making those types of games. It's also very interesting to me on a personal level. I used Unreal to make a game with branching dialogue, which Unreal definitely does not support out of the box. Um, but the Witcher series and CD Projekt Red's games have tons of branching dialogue. So I will be interested to see if they develop some sort of tools to get branching, RPG style dialogue right out of the box with Unreal 5. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think this is just awesome. Just I like we all knew that there's going to be a Witcher 4. I think that's just one of the just unspoken things. Like it wasn't announced for a while, but we all just knew that you're not going to just leave it at Witcher 3 and just leave it like that. So I'm excited that it actually exists in its pre-production form right now. I'm hoping that they take the lessons learned from Cyberpunk because I think there was a lot in Cyberpunk that is worth taking to Witcher 4. There's a lot you
Yeah.
gotta leave behind too. A
Yep.
lot you gotta leave behind. But I
Yeah.
do think that there is a good amount of things that I think Cyberpunk improved on it because Cyberpunk's structure is not too different from Witcher 3's. It's in the same planet. It's not in the same state, but it's in the same planet of, there's branching dialogue trees as well. How the quest format is it's laid out very similarly to how Witcher's is. Even like from the open world, like the open world's kind of structured the same. It's just what's in it's a lot different.
Hmm.
So I do think that there is a lot of room to improve. I think story wise will be fine. I think gameplay wise, that could be the next step to me. Because I do think that Witcher 3 going back to it, I was playing a little bit of it maybe like 2 weeks ago on Switch. And yeah, that combat's not the greatest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think I liked it a lot more when I first played it, but I do think I've played a lot of games since then.
Mhm.
And the combat seems a little stale. You're casting these spells on the ground to trap, like when the enemies walk on the spell. I'm like, that was fine for when it came out in 2015. I do think that it doesn't need to be a first person shooter like Cyberpunk is, but I do appreciate all the different ways you can hurt your enemies in Cyberpunk. And I do hope that something of that nature like kind of finds itself in Witcher 4, where it's not just you have a sword, you have spells, just attack it this way. I'm hoping they expand that a little bit. But besides that, I think this is a great story. Did you have any other final thoughts?
No, that's it for me.
Great. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that. We're gonna be on the lookout next week for Sony to finally announce Spartacus
Yep.
or whatever it's gonna be called. Which I'm gonna go on the record right now. I think it should be called PlayStation Spartacus. I think that's actually a pretty good name. Things are never besides like Octopath, Project Octopath Traveler or Project
Yeah.
Triangle Strategy. Whenever you see project names, you know it's never going to be the name of the actual thing. I hope this is a departure from that. I hope it's PlayStation Spartacus. I think that's a great name, but it's not. It's going to be called something real generic and dumb. So.
Yeah, I think so maybe we should take bets here, but I think that the base version that is basically just PS Plus will be called PlayStation Plus. So it might be that the whole service is called PlayStation Plus, and then the first tier is, PlayStation Plus standard, and then, from there it gets murky. Maybe it's like, uh, PlayStation Insider or something is the top tier, and so that's why you get all the PS1 games and all that kind of shit. Um,
if they
yeah,
if they wanted to be real cheeky, which I would if I was in charge of Sony, I would. If they want to be real cheeky, I would keep the branding except add a new tier. So you have PlayStation Now, but then I'd have PlayStation Then. And PlayStation Then, it would have like all the games from like the past. But
That's
they're not
pretty
gonna
good.
do they're not gonna do
PlayStation
that.
then. That's pretty
PlayStation Then.
good. I like that.
Because the one thing that I find interesting is that they're still selling like the PlayStation Now, like
They are.
so it's like I
They
don't
are.
think you can just get rid of these services.
I
You
think they
know?
will. I think they will convert.
Really?
So I have not put my money where my mouth is yet. But I was seeing some rumors online about people buying PlayStation Now subscriptions and them being converted in the PS and or in the PlayStation 5 menu, they were being counted as PlayStation Plus subscriptions. Like they were just adding to the PlayStation Plus subscription. And then those people had access to PS Now, but then they had like an extra year of PS Plus or something like that. I think it's going to be that. So everybody who has PS Now subscriptions, everyone who has PS Now subscriptions through the next 3 years, that time is basically just going to be added to their PlayStation Plus subscription, and they're going to be grandfathered in to the
Mm,
PlayStation Now tier of the service. I think that's how it's going to work.
that would make a
Um
lot of sense.
because otherwise, yeah, like I mean, we already saw the news reports about how they pulled the physical cards from the stores, but they have not stopped selling digital subscriptions to PlayStation Now on the PlayStation Store.
Right.
Um, this is where I'm saying about like putting my money where my mouth is. I also think that the PlayStation Now tier of this subscription service is going to be much more expensive than PlayStation Now is currently. So I think it's going to be more than PlayStation Now, or it might be equivalent to having both PlayStation Now and PS Plus.
So what are you
Um,
thinking, like $20 a month?
that would put it if it was the equivalent of both of those subscriptions, and you're paying at the yearly level, it would be $120 a year or $10 a month. Um, so I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's going to be like $15 a month out the gate.
And see, that's where I feel like it's gonna have problems
Yeah,
because $15 makes it $5 more than Game Pass.
yeah.
And
Well, but there's three tiers, right? So I think the lowest tier is probably going to be the same price as PlayStation Plus is currently.
mhm, fair enough. Do you think that this is going to have enough to compete with Game Pass? Because I'm reading the Bloomberg article and they don't seem to think so. Now, look, I don't, as Jason Schreier's opinion, of
Yeah.
course, but how he's described it based on his sources, literally the last paragraph reads, Sony will likely be at a disadvantage. The new service. Oh, wow. Way to put your opinion in there,
Put it
Jason. But
plainly.
right. The new service is not expected to feature its biggest titles on the day they come out. The
Yeah.
upcoming God of War Ragnarok, for example, is unlikely to be offered on the streaming platform right away, said one of the people familiar with the plan. And that is, to me, a problem with this thing because
Yeah.
while someone like me, who I would love to play, to have an easy way to access Sly Cooper, I'd love that. Like, if that, because I feel like that's what they're gonna go for. They're gonna really get into the well of their like content they've released the past 20 years. And I think that's gonna be the bread and butter of this thing. But Game Pass is offering brand new Xbox exclusives day one. And I don't know what Sony's going to offer to compete with that.
Yeah, I mean, they have to have good third-party support, probably better third-party support than they've had on PS Now. And PS Now's roster has been better than people have wanted to give it
It's
credit
gotten a,
for.
it's gotten an unfair shake.
Yeah, yeah.
They have
It's
some good
it's
stuff.
pretty good. It does not have the day one releases that Xbox Game Pass has. But it's got plenty of great games and plenty of modern games in the rotating catalog. There often features really good marquee titles. Better. There is better stuff rotating in and out of PlayStation Now than is often on Game Pass. Even though Game Pass gets the day one releases, so like minus the day one releases, PlayStation Now's lineups, I would say, is better generally. But the day one releases tips the scale in a big way.
And
So it's yeah,
yeah, and I'll get to Alfredo's question in a second, but the one thing that I think that's underrated about Game Pass is the games that I don't expect to be on it that get on it and they're there day one. For
yeah,
example, one of my games of the year so far is Nobody Saves the World. I would have paid for that game. Like I would have bought that game outright for $30, but it just appeared on Game Pass for free. And it's like, oh yeah, like that's just great because it's just I was gonna pay for that anyways.
yeah,
If they can get a lot of games of that ilk,
yeah.
games that are, it doesn't have to be like the $60 experience. And even some of those, like you can get something like Outriders. You can get something like Back for Blood. I feel like this is gonna live or die by the day one third party games, as
Third party
Alfredo was
releases, yeah,
asking. I
yep,
think that if
definitely.
they can get those, and look, they're not gonna get everyone, because even Game Pass doesn't get everyone, but they need to get some timely ones.
Yeah, they have not traditionally had any day one releases on PS Now. The exceptions being the first one was GTA 3 for
Right.
the trilogy, the remastered trilogy that was available day and date. And then the second game that was available day and date was Shadow Warrior 3, which just came out. So that seems to me like a recent signaling of like, okay, this is the mode that we're moving into here. At the same time, PlayStation Plus has debuted quite a few games.
Yeah. Rocket
Rocket
League.
League being
Our
probably the
Duke.
biggest example.
Wish we had the Duke of Rocket League there. I'm pretty sure he probably got into Rocket League with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Oh,
it's not
I
like
did for sure.
me
Yeah,
too. It's not so it's not unprecedented like you're saying.
yep.
It's just
Fall Guys is another one that got
yeah.
huge off of of a PS Plus launch. Yeah,
Ooh, as an aside, what happened to Fall Guys?
it's still around, still kicking, and it's actually still doing numbers.
It is great. That's
I
good to
think
hear.
so.
I'm happy for him. I
Yeah,
haven't. I remember I played a lot of that game. I used to hear about it all the time, and then I just stopped hearing about it.
yeah, yeah,
So glad they're still doing numbers and everything. But yeah, Fall Guys is a big one. There's a whole bunch of games. But they've been very few and far between.
yeah.
And
Compared to the Game Pass, I mean, it really is Xbox. The biggest thing is Xbox leveraging its first party for these day and date releases, which PlayStation does not have a clear enough incentive to do that yet. I think
Yeah,
the
and we
quality of their first party output um, suggests that they're undermining themselves by wrapping that up
yeah,
in the subscription service. I think.
I think that's fair. Because I mean, even if I look at what released last year for Game Pass, I thought Xbox had a great year last year, but they released a racing game, which I think is the greatest racing game of all time. But it's a racing game, and they released Halo Infinite, which I love Halo Infinite, but it's not a God of War Ragnarok. It's not a Horizon. It's just a different standard for a game like that. And so PlayStation has released these to me like best way I put it is like Oscar bait. They're like Oscar bait
Yeah, yeah,
games.
definitely, definitely.
And so they hung their hat on that. And I feel there is a fear from their standpoint that if you just release them, I don't even think it's a money aspect of it per se. I'm pretty sure that's a factor too, but it's more of a esteem standpoint. Like if we
Yeah,
release them
yeah,
for
that's interesting.
free, yeah, if we release them for free on this service, like I don't know, like, even when you think of like movies, like when a movie is streaming on Netflix, there's a different feel to it as opposed to if it was just came out straight in the movie theater.
Yeah, I think too. I often think of PlayStation's first party lineup as akin to like HBO series, that
Yeah,
kind of quality, where
it's funny.
it's just a cut above, just a cut above the competition,
Very true. Even though
and
nowadays that's iffy with
it's a little
HBO.
different. I mean, HBO Max is a different beast than
Yeah,
HBO
and
has been.
yeah, and I think HBO Max is a good actually point with that because yeah, there are quality experiences, but I do see like the like that quality is different than it was.
Yep.
I'd say even like 5 years ago, when it was an HBO exclusive show, it has a different feel to it, than just something that comes out on Netflix. And so I think PlayStation is a little scared of that. I don't think
Yeah.
they should be per se because I mean, I don't think them just coming out like that's going to affect the quality of the games.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think one piece that is missing from the conversation here about these subscription services, in my mind, is they will not be dictated by the console for long. The subscription services will subsume and succeed the consoles in many
Mhm.
ways. And when we are not playing on consoles anymore, we will still be playing on these subscription services. I believe that. But for right now, the box matters. And while the box matters, both of these subscription services are gaining their base that will buoy them for decades to come, right? They're building up the subscription base that is going to that they're going to, rely on those monthly payments, right? That initial buildup is happening while the boxes matter. And PlayStation's box is a lot more popular than Xbox's is.
Tenfold.
So
Yeah.
so there's a question of like, yeah, okay, so Game Pass is a better value than PlayStation. But more people want the PlayStation. And if there is a roughly equivalent service on PlayStation and more people want the PlayStation, they'll go for the PlayStation and get the roughly equivalent service. Maybe they'll complain about it, but that's not like I think PlayStation might be looking at this and saying like as long as we are winning the popularity contest, we can have a slightly inferior service as long as we have a viable service, as long as it's viable. PlayStation Now isn't really viable currently, so I think they're right to rebrand, but I don't think they need to chase exactly what Microsoft is doing, and I would not be surprised if they see similar subscribership with a slightly less compelling product than Microsoft has because their ecosystem is more compelling.
That's a great point. I completely agree with that. I think Alfredo asked a question. Are we saying that we are expecting these subscription services to move to an Amazon Luna type service instead
Yeah,
of
like a
being on
cloud
console?
streaming.
I wouldn't say like let's say there's not going to be a PlayStation 6. I'm not saying that. I do think there's going to be a PlayStation 6.
Yeah, I
But
think so too.
I do think there's line to be that's the last PlayStation and that's when we're going to see that shift because I don't think we're remotely close to being able to just have it be a subscription service cuz I don't think there's any streaming stick or, whatever. I don't know how we would even access the games. Like what device will be able to use at least right now that could do that, besides a console that's easily accessible to like the majority of people. So I think we have to wait for technology to get there. But I do agree with you. That's the future. Like once you're able to just have a streaming stick or be an app on your TV, and then you cut it on, and you're able to play games at 4K 60. Yeah, I think that's the direction they want to go in. And I think that once they announce this is going to be a building block to that step. But I do think we're about a decade or more away from that being a reality.
Yeah, I think we are not quite a decade from it being good enough for most people. Think about like the majority of video game consumers that are playing on console. I don't know. I don't know if there's ever been a study of this, like, but what do you assume is the percentage of people that know that there is a game mode on their TV that lowers the input
Ooh, that's a
latency?
that's a good question.
So
Oh,
if there's a ton of people that are
maybe 10%, maybe.
right, yeah, I think it's probably more. I think gamers tend to be a little bit more technologically savvy. Um, so I would say I would assume though that it's like sub 50%. Probably a high
I
forty
would
percent.
definitely agree.
Um, So if there are plenty of people that are playing games with input lag just because they're TV and they're perfectly okay with that, then there are going to be plenty of people who are okay with the latency of streaming very quickly. It's not that far off. You know, it's perfectly playable for some types of games right now. I've said that before. Anything turn based is totally viable
Oh, I
streamed.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
with turn-based games, I do a pretty good amount of PlayStation remote play when I'm out.
yeah,
And one game I was playing on it was Persona 5, and that works perfectly on my phone.
yeah,
But as soon as you switch to something like Spider-Man or,
yeah.
it's a
It's rough. Yeah,
no-go.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know how long it's gonna be. Because I mean, I'm on a 5G connection. Like I have all the bars. I'm wired in on my PlayStation and it's still super laggy. So I'm very curious how long it would take to get it to a playable state for those type of games because those are the games that ultimately sell the console.
Yeah, I think in my experience, Stadia is most of the way there. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's good enough
Yeah, I
to
heard
to
Stadia
have
is really
for
good
a decent
for.
game session. I think streaming from a local system is trickier. So like you're doing remote play, there are more barriers there. Streaming from a company's servers is better. Like my experience with PlayStation Now is tends to be better than my experience with remote play from my PS4. Um,
Okay,
just
that makes
because
sense.
it's not I'm not uploading and downloading from my local network. You know, I'm
Hmm.
just downloading from my local network if I'm playing on PlayStation Now. Um, so yeah, I think it's closer than 10 years in terms of like broad playability. But yeah, some games are going to be worse than others for a while. So how long it's going to take for the box to lose meaning, I don't know. But even still, like so many people have PCs now that are capable of running these games. Um, if Game Pass is just as viable on PC as it is on Xbox, there's a different argument to be made there, right? In terms of devaluing the console.
Yeah. Also, I want to bring I do want to bring the conversation to another question in regards to what we think this might be. Do we think we're going to get a PC announcement for this? I would think why not? Like
It's a good question.
I think that would be a big thing.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this service?
Here's the question: is everything that is available? So we know, or at least from the original Bloomberg report, they said that the top tier subscription would include game streaming. And does that include every game available on the service? Right? Because right now, as far as PS Now is concerned, you can play every PS Now game streaming, and you can download every PS4 game
Mhm.
because the PS3 games can't be played natively on PS4s. Um, you can stream all of that on PC, so you can already use PS Now on PC. Um,
But it's
but
still not like console Game Pass. Oh, sorry, not console, PC Game Pass. Where on
no,
PC
because you
Game
can't
Pass,
download
you
PC games.
right.
You don't have any access to the PC version of those games. So you can play the PS3 version of Fallout 3, but you cannot play the PC version of Fallout 3 through PS Now, which is a
Right. So
significant difference, especially for a game like that. Like because the PS3 version of Fallout 3 is really bad.
30 frames, right? Like
Oh
just
no, it's
30.
not even. I mean, it's like 15 frames sometimes. That game
Oh
that
my
game
god,
chugs on PS3.
I must have like rose tinted glasses for that
Yeah,
game. I love that game, but God, like, I haven't even tried to go back to playing it. So yeah,
yeah,
playing that on PC at 30 less than 30 frames has to be a crazy experience because you own a PC to run that game at like 120, you know?
yeah.
So I do you think that they're going to, because I mean, even like PC Game Pass doesn't have every Game Pass game. Like it's almost its own separate thing, and new games get announced for that you know are usually already available on console Game Pass, and it gets added in the future. I guess because they have, I don't know why that happens, but I'm assuming it's a technical reason. Do you think that we'll get at least some game if they do announce like a PC component of this? Do you think that we'll one will it just be streaming, or do you think it'll be more than that?
I could. It's difficult to say. I could make the argument that like maybe you have access to all of the PlayStation games that have been released on Steam, but that's
Hmm,
not that many right now.
yeah, that's
And
true.
I'm not exactly sure how that would work. See, but like PlayStation, I think we talked about this before. PlayStation has a big uphill battle in terms of PC support. Microsoft has a PC ecosystem already.
Well, Microsoft is PC. I guess that's the big thing. Like,
Right. Well, I should say Xbox has a PC ecosystem in that
yeah,
you can buy Xbox games, or you can buy games from Xbox from an Xbox storefront on PC. There's no equivalent for PlayStation. So
mm,
there is no PlayStation licensing of PC games, right?
right. That'd
It's a
be
big
all.
it's a
It'd
big
be a new
difference.
thing. It'd be an all
Yeah,
new
it'd be a
thing, a
totally new
new
thing.
world.
Yep.
And Microsoft already had an advantage because I don't want to assume this, but I assume like 90 high 90% of PC gamers use Windows.
Yep.
So it's, they already kind of have like, it's a matter of calling a different department of your company to
Yeah.
get this
I,
thing
I
set
think
up.
it may also be a matter of a strategic partnership too, because PlayStation owns a minority stake in Epic Games, and Epic
Mm.
Games has their PC storefront. You
Oh,
could you
I
could
didn't
see a
realize that. You're
deal
right.
you could see a deal being struck there where PlayStation's PC the PlayStation Plus PC subscription includes an Epic Games subscription essentially. Um,
That would be interesting.
and that it's
That would be
it's
very
PlayStation
interesting.
branded, and PlayStation brings all of their PlayStation 4 games that they ported to Steam. They bring them to the Epic Game Store, which I'm surprised they aren't already on the Epic Game Store. Actually, come to think of it now, so maybe the two hands are not talking to each other that well.
Yeah, I guess my overall takeaway from this is I think this is going to be this is a big announcement for PlayStation. Like this
Yeah.
could theoretically be the biggest announcement they do all year. Because
Uh,
this
How
is go ahead.
what's your confidence level that this is going to be that this is going to be something that is predominantly positive in terms of like people the way people receive it? Because I don't see really much of a chance in hell that
Oh,
any that most people are going to be happy with what they roll out here.
I'll broach another question to answer your question.
Okay.
When has anything been received like super positively like in the past like couple of years? I feel like every single thing is like met with like mixed reception. And so I assume that this is gonna be met with
Yeah.
mixed. I would say it's probably gonna lean more towards the negative.
But I think Game Pass was received pretty well because it is just like a pretty much a big win for consumers. So I
But I the thing is with Game Pass, because I remember when that was announced and everything, it was a different feel because Xbox had
just
been
skepticism.
through, or even besides that, like Xbox had been through just like so many disappointing releases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I really think about the entire like Xbox One like lifespan, I can confidently say there were no classic games that were released on that system from an exclusive standpoint. Like, there's no game that's gonna stand the test of time. That's definitely like a top 100 game of all time. Like though, and obviously it's a matter of opinion, of course, but you're talking like Quantum Break, you're
Yeah.
talking Halo 5, you're talking, you know, these games that were kind of seen mixed. And so when they say, "Oh, we're bringing console exclusive games to this software," it's like I remember people on Twitter saying, "Well, that's not much."
Mm,
So it's like I see even like back then Master Chief Collection was probably best the
yeah.
best like exclusive, and that's just a collection of games. So Game Pass wasn't always seen as this like best deal in gaming. It was seen as Microsoft trying to stop hemorrhaging blood from the Xbox One generation. And they've come, and just the success of it is so, I feel like it's a case study, because it was kind of seen as like we're trying to get some positive spin on this horrible generation. That's turned into one of their biggest benefits. So PlayStation's kind of coming in a different playing field because they have kind of been receiving great, like as far as their exclusive go, like it's only been positive. I
Yeah.
think Days Gone is the only one that really came out and was a dud as far as like reception goes. Everything else has been received positively. Like I feel like they only feel pressure to do this because Game Pass has become so successful. Like I feel like if they had it their way, they would just kind of continue what they were doing. But I feel like they feel obligated to do this.
Yeah, their hand is being forced. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and Alfredo says even Game Pass people didn't believe it was going to work. I assume he means like Xbox fans. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I wasn't an Xbox person back then, but I remember seeing that Game Pass. I was like, that's cool. Didn't make me want to buy an Xbox. It was
Yeah.
just like something cool. Then once it was broken down to me, the insane value of it, and they started adding all these games, and they're getting games that you would think they should have no business getting on there. And then and remember, this was before Bethesda was bought. This was
Right.
before Activision was bought. So it's like now you're getting all these Bethesda games day one. And so now, like, I feel like after all of that, Game Pass has kind of shown itself to be just this unbeatable player in the market. And so I don't think Sony's going to attack it from a standpoint of we need to get more subscribers than Game Pass. We need to really be a big competitor. I would hope that they don't brand this as a competitor to Game Pass, but it's something completely different. Because I feel like if you try to go straight up with Game Pass as far as like a feature standpoint, you're gonna lose.
Yeah. It's hard to compete on that level.
So yeah,
They're gonna
I
have to
I
get
think
creative.
super creative. Hopefully
Yeah.
we get some. Hopefully we get Sly Cooper. We need Sly Cooper day one. We need Ape Escape. I think Ape Escape's
We need
exclusive.
all PlayStation 1 through 4 games, uh,
Eh,
up-resed
Yes,
and playing
60
better on
frames,
PS5. Yeah.
4K. I need
The
Metal
dream.
Gear.
That will
I
never
need
happen.
Never have, but I need Metal Gear Solid 1 playable on my PlayStation 5. Sony,
Yeah.
it makes no damn sense. It makes no sense. Like you can,
Yeah, they gotta kick down Konami's door for that one.
I don't even think is it? Do you think it's that? Do
It's
you think
part of
it's
it.
Konami?
Yeah, it's part of it, for sure. For sure.
But the other games can't you play the other ones on there?
You could play them through PS Now. But even now, I don't think that you can because of the licensing issue, and they never like renewed the license for the historical footage that was in those games. So you can't buy them on Steam right now, 2 and 3.
Oh, you're
I don't think
right.
you can buy them on Xbox right now either.
Glad I asked then, because yeah, that's an issue. So yeah,
Yeah.
get that straight. Like, make that part of the announcement. You have
Come on,
all the
Konami.
metal. You have all the Metal Gear Solid games day one. I feel like if they attack it from that standpoint and they market all the past games that they have available, like I feel like, because that's why I like stuff like Disney Plus, where it's like, oh, cool, the Proud Family. Oh,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah, yeah.
Moesha. It's like I
Right.
think that aspect is cool. Even though I'll only go back to it like once or twice.
It's the not yeah, it's the novelty of it being there. It's there if you want it.
Right, because you're not gonna get God of War Ragnarok day one. You're not gonna you're not gonna get her. Although I do think one thing they could do that Nintendo does, ironically, like Nintendo does this where they will release demos and time trials for their games randomly.
Yeah.
I was just playing Monster Hunter Rise on there for it was free for a weekend 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, I would have never bought this game. Cool. I
Yeah. Did
think
did
they could do that.
did
If
the
they could
original
maybe
Bloomberg article say something about that? I kind of recall something like that.
I don't believe it did. I would think that would make sense. I feel like that's not hurting anybody. Like if you put like maybe like the first hour of a game in there. I think that's not like just a brand new game. Horizon comes out, you can play the first hour, or you could play like maybe a developer will set a place where the player can play. Like basically just make it so every game has a demo. I think that would be something that's cool that even Game Pass doesn't do and wouldn't be too out the realm. I feel like that's a good medium in between making the games all free day one and not doing anything at all. I still don't think they're gonna do it though.
I think there was some talk about like free trials essentially. If you in one of the higher tiers.
That would be great. Because I think EA Play did that. I think EA Play had EA Play because they do it with Xbox Game Pass now, where certain games come out and you get 10 hours of a free trial. And Alfredo said, yeah, there was. So that was talked about in some of the rumors. So, I mean, I think that would be not a game changer, but I do think that would be something that's definitely a feature of it that,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
think that
mean,
they need. Mhm.
the extra sales on games is a huge PS Plus feature for me, for sure. Getting extra money off of games,
Extra money
So
off of exclusives too. Like,
yeah,
I remember Ghostwire Tokyo, which I haven't played yet. But Ghostwire, before it came out, like you could buy it for 53.99
yeah.
as
Deathloop
opposed.
too was another one that you
Yeah,
could do that
and
with.
I thought that's very. I mean, I assume that's going to
That's
be
appealing.
still the. Yeah, I assume they're not going to change that. But will that be even better depending on the tier you're at? Like, I
Yeah,
feel
that
like
would be
they're.
awesome. That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I think that there are ways to, because even Game Pass does that, where if a game's leaving Game Pass, then you can buy it for a cheaper price,
That's cool.
which I've always thought was super cool. I think little things like that to make the value of it go up. Like, I think
Right.
they're gonna have to be, like you said, they have to be real creative
Yeah.
because this thing is not competing with Game Pass just straight up. You're not gonna be able to get the same amount of games, same quality of games day one. But I do think them exploring, third party relationships, getting some third parties on board for releasing their games day one, it's going to be very expensive to do that. But, you got to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's something they look at from a sales standpoint. Hope they attack it from there. And then we need our Metal Gear Solid on there as well. So please, Sony. Any closing
It's a
thoughts
must.
on Spartacus? Anything you're looking forward to with it?
Fingers crossed that this latest report from Bloomberg that they are revealing it next week is actually true, and that we don't get silence for a week.
I feel like that if it's not true, that would be very sad.
Yeah, yeah,
I would, I'll be very. I feel like that would be super disappointing because they haven't announced when they would like make the announcement.
yeah. I think this is another kind of question. Do you think that this service is going to go live when they announce it? Because
No,
I think that they will make the changeover. the same time that
Really?
they announce it. Yeah, I think it's going to be.
Really?
Yeah, I think they'll do some sort of, you know, not a state of play, but something equivalent to that, where they're like, and starting tomorrow, after like 9 a.m., the
So they're
service will
gonna do
be
like
available
a
to
one
all.
more thing, like a one
Yeah,
more
yeah.
thing.
Well, no, it'll just be like, you know, not allowing people to stock up on PS Now cards right before,
Oh, okay, I
right
feel
before
you.
the thing turns over.
Well, I think they might set a cutoff date for you to be able to buy cards to
Maybe
do that. But because I feel like doing it so like it would have to be they have to know they have something, you know? Like I feel like if it gets met with negative reception and it's
it's
like,
too
yeah, we're
late.
making that change
No,
tomorrow.
I think it's too late. Regardless, I think they just have to go full
That's
steam
true. That's
ahead. They
fair.
they got to do it, and then they got to adapt on the fly. There's no changing ahead of time. So
So,
I think they announce it and it goes live, and let the chips fall where they may. That's my guess.
well, I'm telling you, it's gonna be PlayStation now and PlayStation then. we will
Excellent.
we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, it's not something as corny as that, but hopefully they get a little creative with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will explore that hopefully next week. But speaking of then, I'm gonna do a little reminisce. So I was playing obviously Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I don't know why, but it was really tapping into that nostalgic feel, really hitting me hard. Of like I loved Pokemon for a lot of my life. And so I went over to my mom's house and I found my old GBA. And it had a copy of my first Pokemon game that I really got into, which is Pokemon Fire Red. And have you ever played Fire Red or any of the older Pokemon games?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Fire Red is a remake of the original Red Game Boy Color game, the first Pokemon game. So it was made in kind of like a Nintendo Game Boy Advance color scheme, technology, all that. So it looks like a kind of like an NES game, SNES game. And yeah, I was playing through that a little bit, and man, those games, while they are still Pokemon games, like there is a quality to them that I think that the newer games have sort of left behind. There's nothing that really beats them to me. Like they feel like those games are timeless to me. Like those are some of the games that if we're making like a not a rocket ship, but what's the thing when you're a kid and you a not a time machine, but
Time
like you
capsule?
time capsule. There we go. Time capsule. Like if we're making like a time capsule of what is gaming. I feel like you got to put Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green in there because
Mm,
they are better versions of the original games, but they're the original games pretty much one for
yeah.
one. And I forgot how good they were. That was what got me into Pokemon as a franchise. I can't say I stuck with Pokemon for a long time since then, but I definitely got into it with those games and obviously the anime. And yeah, just that was yeah, I just want to make a really quick
You
reminisce.
kind of started by saying that, like, sort of saying that, like, they don't make them like they used to, kind of.
Yeah,
Well,
member berries. Yeah,
yeah, well, I'm curious, like, what is giving you the impression that something has been lost with the newer games? Is it just attention to detail, this desire to like innovate, or
they
what's being lost?
they become a lot easier.
Okay.
Where even like I didn't play a lot of it, but like it was way easier to die. Like
Hmm.
the stakes were a little higher. Like because it was a lot harder to level up. Like the one thing that they've done now is, and a lot of RPGs do this, but Pokemon just makes it way easier. They all your Pokemon level up at one time. So like if you're fighting a battle with one Pokemon, all of them level up.
Okay.
And with the older games, the only one that would level up is
The one who
the
was
one
fighting,
Pokemon that's fighting. So it makes the game longer because you have to basically in fights, like I would be like subbing out Pokemon left and right. So
just to
all of them
just
can get
to
the
level them
right. So it's
evenly.
almost like a mini game in the
Yeah,
actual
that's
like
that's cool. It incentivizes you to switch up your roster more.
Right, exactly. And it was just to me that aspect is a big loss, even though it's
Mhm.
a feature now, because it just makes the game like with Arceus. I'm just like I haven't died yet.
Yeah,
Like I haven't died.
absolutely.
I haven't felt even close to like being completely dead. And with those games, it was pretty easy to go into fights under leveled because the one thing about Pokemon games that make them easier now is like, okay, you might have a level 45 Pokemon and you have like a level 35. But if you have like 6 level 35 Pokemon, you can just kind of chip away at the Pokemon you're fighting.
Yeah.
Now, in the older games, like that's still true, but it's harder to get all those Pokemon to level 35
Mm,
because you have to grind and get them all there.
right.
You have to change Pokemon, you have to go all the way out of town. You have to go back to the town and go to the computer and swap them. Now they're all kind of with you. So it's just the games have gotten a lot easier. And I forgot how appealing this franchise was because while it's not a hard game. I played hard RPGs, but I do think something was lost in that transition from Game Boy Advance to DS. And from then on, it's just gotten a lot easier from there.
Mm. So
So
what you're saying is that the old Pokemon games would properly crush Alfredo and give him a good experience. Is that what you're saying?
I think they would crush him completely.
Good.
I think he
Okay,
would I
good.
think he would pray to go back to Elden Ring.
Excellent.
Oh man. So this has of course been the Dukes of Gaming podcast. Thank you for listening or watching. Again, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast service or watch us on YouTube or Twitch. Leave a like, a review, a comment, anything to help support the show. You can even email us at the real Dukes of Gaming at Gmail to have your question read live on air or join our Twitch stream, Facebook stream. Join us and ask some questions there. We'll address it as we go. Hit the bell as well on YouTube to get notifications on when we drop our videos. And we will post everywhere every week. So make sure you start your week right with the Dukes of Gaming. And with all that being said, I bid thee farewell.